Hello, friends. Welcome back. It's Art with Miss Covington. And today we are going to be learning about the art of Faith Ringgold. Our goal today is to learn about the art of Faith Ringgold to create an illustration inspired by her. Our agenda is to learn about Faith Ringgold, understand the use of illustrations, and create an illustration. Who is Faith Ringgold? Faith Ringgold was born in Manhattan, New York in 1930. Her most famous artworks are her story quilts. These were a combination of sewing fabric and painting stories of her life. She is also an award-winning author and illustrator, and she is now 90 years old. Can you think about what an author and an illustrator do? Do they have the same jobs? Can somebody be both? Let's learn a little bit more about Faith Ringgold.
Who I am. My story as an artist is who I am. That's where the art comes from. I am black and I am a woman. There it is. Faith Ringgold's story started in New York City in the 1930s. It was the tail end of the Harlem Renaissance, a time when African American painters, musicians, and writers were turning their stories into great art. There was a tremendous cultural activity going on in Harlem. The first time when Black people felt comfortable about showing their own image. Inspired by the artists in Harlem, Ringgold went to college to study art and barely noticed she was one of the few Black women there. It never, ever occurred to me that, you don't see nobody look like you, Faith. What are you thinking? In college, she learned to paint in a European style that was centuries old. She copied Greek busts and paintings by artists like Cézanne and Rembrandt. But when she graduated, ready to become a painter, the world was changing fast. Civil rights protesters were everywhere, demanding equal rights for African Americans. And I say to myself, you're taking the European theme of making still life and landscapes? You are in the middle of all this? You can't do that. Ringgold turned to her African roots for inspiration. She loved the colorful patterns, rhythms, and repetitions of African textiles. Slaves like Faith's great-great-grandmother brought those traditions to the U.S. and made quilts in vibrant colors and complicated patterns. And I said, boy, I can combine all of this European composition with my ancestral African roots in quilt making, create from my experience. At the time, contemporary art looked like this. Abstract paintings by people like Willem de Kooning and Jackson Pollock that weren't meant to represent anything in the real world. But Ringgold wanted to tell stories. She made quilts in the tradition of her ancestors and added words to create a new art form. The story quilt. She told stories about the heroes of African American history and personal stories about hot summer nights growing up near the George Washington Bridge. In a lifetime as an artist, she's made paintings, sculptures, quilts, and children's books. You can even find her art in the New York City subway at 125th Street in Harlem, where she paid tribute to the famous neighbors who gave her the confidence to get her life and her art off the ground. I became an artist so that I could tell my story. And I just decided, when somebody says you can't do something, do more of it. Accelerate. That's the way you get it.
Let's talk about the art of Faith Ringgold. What do you notice? What do you think this painting is about? In the video that we just watched, we noticed several of Faith Ringgold's paintings and illustrations. I'm noticing a lot of people. It appears that it is some gathering. There is also some words on this painting that we can read. And if we read the words, it gives us a better idea of what this painting is about. A lot of paintings actually don't have words, so it is up to us to interpret a painting based off of what we see. In this painting, I can see both the words and the illustrations. It looks like people are moving around. It looks like they are dancing. I can see in the very middle of this painting, there is a woman and a man. The woman is wearing a pink dress and the man is wearing a suit. They look like they are dressed up very nicely. And if you read the quilt next to these two people, it says Freedom Baptist Church Annual Sunday School Picnic. And they definitely look like they would be going to church. They are dressed very nicely. They're having a picnic. You can see the food that is on these quilts. You can see the color of the grass and all the different textures, the beautiful colors of the quilts that these people are sitting on, all the details of their hats, their clothing. Looks like they're having a good time. This painting also shows a lot of movement, as we can see that some of these figures are sitting and some are up dancing. The figures that are closest to us appear to be dancing. There's two children that appear to be running. Looks like they are having a great time. Here is another illustration by Faith Ringgold. This artwork is called Tar Beach. Faith Ringgold also illustrated a book, which we will listen to, inspired by this piece. What are these people doing in this image compared to the last image? What is the setting? Is it different or is it the same? And how are some of these characters interacting with each other? Are they different or the same? The setting is definitely a lot different in this painting. You can tell that these characters are in an urban setting. There's lots of skyscrapers and tall buildings. This is also taking place at night. What do we notice in the skyline that lets us know about the setting? We can see stars, so that lets us know it is not the daytime, it's more night. There is something similar to these two illustrations. These characters are interacting with each other and they are eating. They're sitting at a table. Something different that I notice is that some characters are jumping and flying in the sky, whereas the first illustration, they were not doing that. I'm also noticing borders So both the first illustration and the second illustration each have borders around the painting. So let's go back. So this first one, we notice this quilt-like border circling around this painting. And if we look at this one, it is kind of that same pattern quilt border that is circling around this painting. Today, when we create our illustrations, we are also going to be creating a border around them. Now let's listen to a book written and illustrated by Faith Ringgold, titled Tar Beach.
My name is Faith Ringgold. I wrote Tar Beach, a book, in 1990. I will always remember when the stars fell down around me and lifted me up above the George Washington Bridge. I could see our tiny rooftop with Mommy and Daddy and Mr. and Mrs. Honey, our next door neighbors, still playing cards as if nothing was going on. And BB, my baby brother, lying real still on the mattress, just like I told him to. His eyes like huge floodlights tracking me through the sky. Sleeping on Todd was magical. Lying on the roof in the night with stars and skyscraper buildings all around me made me feel rich, like I owned all that I could see. The bridge was my most prized possession. Daddy said that the George Washington Bridge is the longest and most beautiful bridge in the world, and that it opened in 1931 on the very day I was born. Daddy worked on that bridge, hoisting cables. Since then, I've wanted that bridge to be mine. Now I have claimed it. All I had to do was fly over it for it to be mine forever. I can wear it like a giant diamond necklace, or just fly above it and marvel at its sparkling beauty. I can fly. Yes, fly. Me, Cassie Louise Lightfoot, only 8 years old and in the third grade, and I can fly. That means I am free to go wherever I want for the rest of my life. Daddy took me to see the new Union building he's working on. He can walk on steel girders high up in the sky and not fall. They call him the cat. But still, he can't join the Union because Grandpa wasn't a member. Well, Daddy is going to own that building because I'm going to fly over it and give it to him. Then it won't matter that he's not in their own, or whether he's colored or a half-breed Indian, like they say. He'll be rich and won't have to stand on 24-story high girders and look down. He can look at his building going up. And Mommy won't cry all winter when he goes to look for work and doesn't come home. And Mommy can laugh and sleep late like Mrs. Honey. And we can have ice cream every night. Next, I'm going to fly over the ice cream factory just to make sure. Tonight, we're going up to Tar Beach. Mommy is roasting peanuts and frying chicken. And Daddy will bring home a watermelon. Mr. and Mrs. Honey will bring the beer and their old green card paper. And then Stars will fall around me, and I will fly to the Union Building. I'll take BB with me. He has threatened to tell Mommy and Daddy if I leave him behind. I have told him it's very easy. Anyone can fly. All you need is somewhere to go that you can't get to any other way. The next thing you know, you're flying among the stars. The end.
Ringgold both wrote and illustrated Tar Beach. What is the role of an illustrator? What do we call images found in books? Stories? Illustrations are artwork created to go with a story. Do you recognize this one? He's got glasses and he's flying on a broom. I think I know the story that this would go with. Harry Potter. I think this is a great illustration and kind of describes the character from the book. Do you recognize any of these famous illustrations? There's a caterpillar. Got these. This one. Ooh, might recognize that one. Some Dr. Seuss. Our project today is to create an illustration inspired by Faith Ringgold. But first, we need to think about what we want to illustrate. So, do you have a favorite story or favorite character from a story that you want to put in your illustration? What kind of story would you like to use for your illustration? Is it a memory? Is it a fantasy? What details will you include to support your story? So this could be a made-up story. If you want to make up your own story, make up your own illustration for your story, that would be even better. Or you can use a story that maybe you've already read and create an illustration for that. And then we also want to incorporate a little bit of text. So on the back of your paper, after you're done with your illustration inspired by Faith Ringgold, then we're going to write a little bit about our illustration. So you're going to give me some key details about it, what it's about, what's going on, maybe the setting. We've talked a little bit about setting already with Faith Ringgold, an urban setting, and then being outside. Was it day? Was it night? So you may want to describe that on the back of yours. So let's get started on creating our own. I'm going to show you one that I have done. But first, we're going to brainstorm a little bit. So think about, you can pause the video if you want, think about a story or think about what you want to draw. Okay, and so I have some other helpful prompts that might help us out today. So the first thing that we're going to do is we are going to get a ruler, and any kind of straight edge will be fine if you have something that's going to make a straight line. Okay, so find a ruler and a pencil and a piece of paper, and we want to make a border around our paper. Okay, so as you can see, or as you did see in a lot of Faith Ringgold's artwork, she created a border. So step one, place a ruler or anything with a straight edge along the edge of a paper and trace the line. Repeat from each edge of the paper until you've created a border. And then you're going to break down your kind of long rectangles into squares. Once you've created several squares inside of your border, then you're going to create patterns in each one. Faith Ringgold used a lot of quilts. So she would make a quilt or she would use the patterns from a quilt for her border. So we are going to be creating lots of different patterns in our border. So inside of your square, step 3, create different patterns inside each of those. And then you can add color. You can use crayons, markers, whatever you have to add some color. And then you're going to draw a line. Inside of that rectangle box, you're going to draw something that might have inspired you for this illustration. So for instance, this one says, if I could fly anywhere, I would, there's a prompt, a writing prompt. And then maybe you would draw an illustration for that writing prompt. All right, so that's the border. So if you could fly anywhere, where would you go? Illustrate a cover of or a page from your favorite book. You could write a little explanation of what the story is and why you've chosen it, and then illustrate you can illustrate your favorite memory. So this is a really good memory of somebody swinging on a swing. So these are some examples. And here are some other examples of illustrations of a memory. Your memory should fill up the whole page or all of the space that you have. So it looks like there's a memory of catching lightning bugs. There's a memory of blowing bubbles. There's a memory of a little girl holding a chicken. Looks like there's a memory of someone picking flowers outside. So you can either do and illustrate a scene from a book, you can make up your own scene, or you can illustrate something from memory. All right, so our last essential questions are, what have you learned about Faith Ringgold and her art? What is an illustration? And what have you chosen to illustrate, and what is your story? So by the end of your complete illustration, you should be able to answer some of these questions about Faith Ringgold, about illustrations, and be able to tell us about your own illustration that you have created.